When I started, I'd never written novels before because I write television shows. But I had this idea for this story, and I outlined 10 stories. And because I'm a really firm believer in outlining things, because there's so much of a mystery component to my books, that I really believe you have to know where a mystery is going to end before you know where it's going to begin, that I've just been kind of following the pattern from beginning to end. It does get a little more difficult now because as the story has grown and grown and grown and grown and grown and grown, that I'm kind of forgetting things that happened at the beginning, and so it's like I have to make sure that everything stays true to the previous 7 books or 8 books now that I'm writing book number 9. So that gets a little more difficult. But other than that, it's pretty much the same process now that it was 6 years ago when I wrote The Merchant of Death. I have enjoyed writing all the books. I can say which was the most difficult book to write and which was the easiest book to write. The easiest book to write for me was Pendragon number 3, which is called The Never War, because for those of you who have read it, it's a time travel story, and it takes place on First Earth, which is our Earth in 1937. So rather than having to create an entirely new world in that book, I went back and did research about 1937 and about events and about things and about places. So that was really a lot of fun. In doing the research, it gave me a lot of ideas for the book. So that was probably the most fun and easiest book to write because it was so different than the others. The most difficult book to write was Pendragon number 7, The Quillen Games. And that's because I had to create all of these brand new games for Bobby to play. And, he wasn't playing games that we all know about. He was playing these death-defying, scary challenges. And so I had to think up all those games, create all the rules, and then have Bobby play them and describe that. So every time I got to a part in the book where I had to write another game, I was like, oh boy, here we go. It was hard. I think the result was pretty good, but it was difficult to do. It is very different writing books than it is writing on the screen, and some of it's very much the same. What's different about it is that there's no budget. It's as simple as that. When you write something for the screen, ultimately you have to create it for real. You have to put it in front of the camera. You have to photograph it. You have to cast actors. You have to create sets. You have to do wardrobe. You have to edit. You have to add music. And all that is very, very expensive, and every show comes with a budget. And as well, since I do TV, it comes with a time restriction. Shows are half hour or they're an hour long. So writing for film and television is very, very restrictive. Whereas writing books, ink is inexpensive. I can write whatever I want to write, and it can be as long or as short as I want it to be. So it really lets my imagination go much further. A lot of people say that my books read like screenplays, and I think that's because when you write for the screen, you have to be very economical with your words. You have to paint the picture very quickly because you can't get into characters' heads that much on screen. You just have to write down what you see. So now that I'm writing the books, I just kind of write down what I see in my head, and it's very economical, and that's why people say they can really see what I write. Another great thing about writing books rather than the screen is that I pretty much do what I want. I have an editor and I have a copy editor that kind of keep me in line a little bit. But when you write for TV, you've got so many people that look at what you do. You've got other producers and you've got network people and studio people, and they all kind of have input. Where with books, I can write whatever I want to write. All those differences aside, there is one thing that is absolutely the exact same between TV and books, and that is it's storytelling. You still have to have good characters, you still have to put them into an interesting situation, and you still have to make the viewer or the reader care about those characters, and that's the same whether you're writing TV, movies, plays, books, or whatever. Good drama is good drama, and therefore that makes it very similar. Bobby has become a pretty popular character, and I think there are a couple reasons for that. Bobby is a really normal kid. I mean, he certainly is a good kid, and he's very talented, and he's pretty smart, but he doesn't really have superpowers. He can't suddenly cast a magical spell and get out of a situation. He is like a real kid that's thrown into this impossible situation and has to deal with it using the same tools that readers might have. So I truly believe that readers kind of live Bobby's adventures through him and imagine what would I do if I was stuck in this situation? And frankly, that's the way I write them too. I kind of put myself into these situations and say, I look around, how am I going to get myself out of this thing? And I don't have any superpowers to do it. Bobby doesn't have any superpowers. He can't suddenly fly away, or he can't become invisible, or he can't do anything like that. He's got to use real world things to solve his dilemmas. And I think readers really, really respond to that. It's not just that, but Bobby also has a pretty good sense of humor. And even though he's thrust into these impossible situations and trying to save all of Hala from destruction, but he's kind of a cynic and he kind of makes fun of things a lot. So I think all readers kind of respond to that because he looks at a situation and he makes fun of it a little bit before he's got to dive into it. So I think those two things, Bobby's sense of humor and the fact that he is a very normal, accessible kid that you could be either sitting next to class with or imagine yourself to be, I think that's why readers really respond to Bobby. I do have a lot of unique settings in my books, but if you really bring them down to their kind of the basics of what they really aren't that unique. People write to me all the time and they ask me what's the best tip about writing, what advice can I give them about writing? And I say to them, you have to write about things that you know. You have to write about people and places and emotions and events and conflicts, and because when you do that, it feels real and people will respond to it. So when people ask me where did I get the inspiration for the Pendragon books and for the settings, my answer really is it comes from real life. It comes from things that I have done. Now, certainly I haven't jumped through a flume and gone to other territories and battled evil demons or anything like that. But, for example, I'm a scuba diver. So I know what it's like to be underwater. So I was able to kind of build on that and create the underwater world of Chloral from The Lost City of Far. I've been to the jungles in Belize, so I kind of used that to base the jungle, steamy rainforest jungle world of Elong from Blackwater. So everything that's in the book kind of has a basis from reality that I myself have experienced. I just take the rudiments of it and then build it up to something really fantastical.